Lewis is still off. I think he starts next week or the week after. But I hope you all had a fantastic Eid if you celebrated yesterday. If you've obviously celebrated today, hope it was a really good one. How was yours, Lewis? Obviously, you were on your Jack Jones.
I was on my Jack Jones. Honestly, it was a very quiet affair. There are a few things happening around Dubai yesterday and today. Today I might nip out to see some fireworks or some festivities out on Blue Waters Island. But yeah, it was a very quiet affair. I did a lot of video calling back home, so I kind of felt part of the party, as they say. But it was very nice. Family all got together in the UK, so I kind of felt included somewhat. Finished it off with a bit of Man City Bournemouth in the FA Cup. So yeah, very very quiet affair. How about yours? I imagine you stuffed yourself.
I did stuff myself for two reasons. One, it was good food. And B, it was maybe, I mean, I would sort of say drowning in your sorrows, but obviously when you're eating, you can't say drowning in your sorrows. So it was a strange day because obviously it was a day of celebrations, but I was still in a state of complete frustration and rage and anger. And we are going to talk about that because obviously my beloved Leeds, as always, a kick in the didn't want it. It was a game that really was a must win. So absolutely ruined my weekend. I'm still sort of not recovered. It was you lose games of football, and there's sort of really bad ways of losing games of football, and that was probably the worst. I absolutely, and the Leeds content creators have gone absolutely nuts. I mean, if you follow social media, if you're following social media as a Leeds fan, my word, I've never known it so toxic. And we normally are quite toxic at the best of times. So it was a horrific weekend.
Yeah, I mean, look, I saw the game. I was following the game, this one, a little bit closely. I mean, it was a game that, by all intents and purposes, I think after the first goal, I think they got back into it a little bit. And obviously, you're thinking it's going to be one of those days. You get the what seems to be the winner. I think about the 86th minute through Nonto. I saw the goal ball kind of careered through a lot of bodies in the box and pandemonium. There was absolute pandemonium. He was whipping out his shirt, and you felt it was another huge win at home. Um, but I'll give you the floor with this goalkeeper, Ayub. I mean, he has had a very charmed life, I would say, as Leeds goalkeeper. I'm surprised that he's still the number one. I don't want to be ignorant. You watch him, you read about him much more closely than I do. He's had some shocking moments, and I mean shocking moments, as a Leeds goalkeeper. Obviously, big penalty save in the game as well. So kind of went from hero to villain. I mean, the first goal, Ayub, I'm sure you've got something to say about that, but he's under zero pressure. I don't know if there's some argument about the sun or what have you, but I'll give you the floor. Firstly, about the goalkeeper himself, and just generally where this result leaves the Leeds, because it did feel crucial, just because obviously games are running out as well, and with the other teams near you doing what they did.
I mean, the story starts not Saturday. It starts a few years ago. I mean, this guy's been dubious at the best of times. I mean, he started. I mean, this is a real strange one. When he started, when we first bought him, he looked very promising, and he looked very much the modern keeper, where he was decent with his feet. But there's been a regression. I mean, keepers normally get better, and the older they get, the better they get. This guy's actually regressing, uh, and it's a frustration beyond belief. But really, at some stage, you have to hold the manager accountable. I mean, this is where again, I mean, it's almost become a joke in terms of my criticisms of Farke. But there is a real seriousness and a real rationale as to why I criticise Farke. It's not just on a whim, but genuinely, I do, and I stick to my assertion that I think he is the worst coach in a championship. I'd go as far as sort of saying he's probably the worst coach or one of the worst coaches in English football. I mean, you're shaking your head, but really, this is the rebuttal I always tend to get is
Gone
he's
too
had two
far.
promotions.
No, you've just
Uh,
gone too far. he's he's knocking at the top end of the championship, the second tier in English football, and there you are again saying he's probably the worst coach in English football. I mean, I just don't get it.
No, but this is. I mean, every time that I obviously, I mean, because I make this argument numerous times, especially on social media, and I'm always expecting what the rebuttal is going to be. That, oh, well, you're second, you're first. He's had two promotions. Uh, my point always is that if you have the best squad, invariably, even without a coach, you're probably still going to do really, really well. So, in Leeds' case, he's had the best squad for 2 years. Now the KPI should be promotion. Simple as that. I mean it's like somebody having a Ferrari and driving at 40 miles an hour. It just is. You're not getting the most out of what you have, and this is what this guy is doing. We should be more than 10 points clear, and that would have been acceptable. In a sense, he's got what the squad is capable of. The fact that we're second, we're probably going to be third over the after next weekend. That is a damning indictment on this guy. So really, this is where I just his win ratio is superb, but it's the players. It's nothing to do with Daniel Farke. I think, in a sense, he's a hindrance because if we had a better coach, uh, we would have got promoted last season. Forget this season, we got promoted last season. There is finally now. I think even the ardent Farke supporters. I mean, when I was on social media throughout the weekend, and I was constantly on it. I mean, in a sense, it was almost, I won't say cathartic, but I had to sort of share the pain. Uh, so many content creators that I follow, I've never seen them so angry. Uh, it's called the Square Ball, and it's quite reputable. I mean, it has Phil Hay from the Athletic on. He used to be on quite regularly, so obviously it's a reputable podcast. They were absolutely, they went ballistic. The effing and blinded, and this is what was happening. I think even and there's a guy called Conor McGilligan, really, really good sort of YouTuber. He's got a podcast, and he does a live watch along. I don't know how you can do that, and it's brilliant. I mean, he's put some shorts out when Swansea equalised and when they scored that second, which was just I felt his pain. I felt his pain. And it was the worst way. But I'll just go to the
Yep.
game and then maybe I'll talk about other issues as well. In terms of the game, it was a must win because we know
Yeah.
what our competitors are doing. Sheffield United won very comprehensively against an informed Coventry. Burnley, a comfortable, albeit 1-0, but a comfortable victory against a very, very good Bristol City side. Of the three games, we had the easiest game on paper, Swansea. Uh, Fantastic start, 30 seconds. Brendan Aronson, who's been woefully out of form, but it was a bit of a poacher's goal. Great start. Let's see if we can kick on. No chance. We were awful. Flat. Uh, we were hustled, hassled. They were pressing. We couldn't string two or three passes together. They looked very lethargic. We had a number of players. I mean, this is again the criticism of Farke. Now, we've had a number of players who were on international duty. I mean, they were spent before they went on international duty. Now, we've got the best squad. We've got an array of riches on the benches. What does Farke do? He plays Solomon, who's absolutely knackered. He plays Dan James, who's on his knees. Uh, he did rest a couple of players, and then he also brings in Ampadu. Now, albeit he's a very key part of our squad, but he's been out for 6, 7, 8
Yep.
weeks with quite a serious injury. It's a must win game. You got to have somebody who's match fit. You know that we've played football. You know there's a difference between being fit and being match fit. He was sluggish. He couldn't keep up with the pace. And central midfield's an important cog in any team. And Ampadu was playing in the middle of the park, and he was a passenger. So the first half was awful. Second half, we sort of picked it up a little bit, but that's only because our bar was so low. And then,
It's a shocking goal, Ayub. I mean,
yeah,
I've not seen a goal conceded like that. I had to watch it multiple times because when you see, for those who've not seen it, it's a corner, left-footed, I believe, curling inwards. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but all the Leeds players gave the goalkeeper plenty of space to operate. When I saw it the first time, I thought, oh, he must be under a bit of pressure, a bit of argy bargy, and He's dropped it. And then when I saw the subsequent replays, there's no one near him.
Yeah.
There's no one near him. Now, I don't know. Again, I'll let you speak about if there's any sunlight issues and all the rest of it. But at this level, you can't. I mean, you can't legislate for that. I mean, even you, the most ardent Daniel Farker critic, I can't blame the manager for what is essentially just an individual mistake that you can't. I mean, you just can't legislate for that. You surely.
Uh, Now I'll blame Daniel Fark. The reason why
Of course
is,
you
do you know,
will.
in January, there was a huge call for buying another keeper. What Daniel Fark did was no, he was happy with Melier. Now he's made mistakes not just this season, last season. The only manager that we've had who's had the the wherewithal to drop him was Big Sam Allardyce. Do you know when he came in for that Premier League for the 4 or 5 games? Straight away, his first decision was to bin Melier because he'd been making mistakes in the Premier League as well. So we're talking about a keeper who's had a history. He was given the opportunity, or at least he had the option of buying a keeper in January. Daniel Fox said no.
Yeah,
He
but
he doubled down, and
but you know this, you know this. It's difficult to get a number one goalkeeper in Jan. Somewhere I'm with you, like deal with it. But it's you. I mean, you come on, you've got to be fair. In January, are you going to be able to replace a first choice goalkeeper? That's a challenge, isn't it? Come on.
you say that, but how many teams uh, in the top flight in across Europe and in the Premier League as well have really really good second keepers. Now, obviously, there is always a difficult task. If you, I mean, it's like Kelleher at Liverpool. There's no way a keeper of that caliber is going to be allowed to go on loan. But there was absolutely no efforts made because Fark said straight away, "Nope, I'm happy with this." He's gone as far as saying that he is the best keeper in the Championship. Unbelievable. We had an option of buying a number 10 or at least looking for a number 10 as well. Again, Fark was. This is why I'm critical of Daniel Fark because he had the option. He refused to strengthen in January. That goes down to the owners as well because there is a history with this football club that we tail off at the fag end of the season. Now, there's two reasons for that. A, obviously, uh, we've not got, and B, this guy doesn't rotate. He has absolutely no idea of how to squad rotate and to keep players fresh. This is the problem. We've got Ramazani, who would make it to any championship side. Nonto, who would make it into any championship side. They've hardly had any game time. Schmidt, Isaac Schmidt, he played for Switzerland, was quite impressive. In the cameos that he's had for Leeds, he has been quite impressive. He's played about 25 minutes. This is the problem with Daniel, and this is the reason why I'm so critical of Daniel Fark. Uh, he's this two promotions that he got with Norwich. It's almost like it's a get out of jail free. He just needs to say that, oh, I've got Norwich promoted. And everybody sort of thinks
It,
that he's some
it,
sort of genius coach. Go on.
no, I listen. I'm more than happy to hear you rant on. I mean, I'm still off for a few more days, so I'll let you loose. Um, no, look, the only thing I say about the Norwich thing, it's not a stick that I beat you with. What I would say is that I think you overstate, in a sense, his incompetence simply because you're right. I mean, if his previous promotions from the Championship are something to hold your hat onto. Well, this is what the Leeds target is right now. And the only misgiving I have with your earlier statement about being ahead by 10 points, no one gives that particular target to a manager to say, oh, we need you to win the competition, but actually we want you to win by 10 points because that's where we think you should be adequately placed. You know, it's about wins and losses. It's about getting promoted and not getting promoted. And right now, although they could, I agree with you, could and should have been in a slightly better position simply because of the recent form, which is showing signs of, well, stuttering. And if they continue at this, they will end up third. No two ways about it. They're still right there. Now, it's not as though they've fallen apart. They are showing signs where perhaps they're about to fall apart, especially in some of their performances. I think more so even than the results. You're seeing large parts of games where they're not as dominant as they were in the first maybe two-thirds of the season. So that I accept. I agree the signs are not necessarily great, but surely these players have done enough to earn a little bit of trust to see if they can still see the job through. I don't expect Sheffield United and Burnley to win out, far from it. So I mean, yeah, Leeds are still right in there, don't you think?
No, I don't. I really don't.
Trying to put a positive
It's
spin on this.
yeah, no, it just isn't because as a Leeds supporter, we've seen this story before and we know how it plays out. Last season was exactly the same where uh, we sort of tailed off really, really badly. I mean, it was a proper implosion, and we couldn't buy a win. It was a real struggle, and Fort was just absolutely exposed. And this Swansea performance as well. And again, it's something that I've said before. There's a lot of things that I've said, and it's not about, all right, see, I was right. But I think there's so many things that I've said have come to fruition. I mean, it pains me to say because, in a sense, I wish I was wrong, but I've questioned Falk on a number of things. His in-game management is absolutely awful because his tactic seems to be relying on good players coming up with a piece of magic. Uh, and I'll talk about the second goal in a sense that absolutely encapsulates the incompetence of Falk and a reflection on the players as well. Because the one thing that we don't have that Burnley have and that Sheffield United have is characters. You know, warriors, people who put their body on the line. If you saw the last goal, which obviously you have,
Yep.
uh, Firpo, so that it's a throw in. It's 95 minutes. There's 7 minutes of added time. You're playing out time. It's managing the game. You've got 2 minutes. He puts a throw in the center infield. You don't do that. You just play down the lines,
Up
down
the
the
line.
channels. What you do,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's simple. He's
The
a
worst thing is, Abe, sorry to interrupt. The worst thing is he's taking the throw in near to the dugouts. So I mean, you'd think because I remember watching the goal, I also thought I think it's Pascal's strike. Tell me if I'm mistaken, but I thought he was very feeble in a 50-50 in the middle of the park, which won the initial ball, which then kind of went through to the striker who scores from a tight angle. I mean, Melia again will be pretty disappointed to get beaten from that angle, but it was a feeble 50-50. But he's taken a throw in relatively close to the dugout because I think Ellen Road, the dugout's at the bottom end as you watch the game,
yeah,
let's say. So you'd think somebody there from the coaching staff, manager included, would just be guiding there a little bit. I don't know if Farker is one where, because I see him sitting on the touchline a fair bit. Again, you speak to it better than I can, whether or not he spends enough time, let's say, kind of standing. But what you want there is when you're trying to see a game out, you've not played particularly well, you've probably just got out of jail. To your point is get it up the line. What you're looking for there, similar to kind of rugby and other sports, is you're looking for yards. Just get up the
yeah.
pitch. So I take your point. Your point's well taken, I think, in that respect for sure.
And that was the thing. It was the comedy of errors. What happens is a he's taken a throw in, which is infield, which is you don't want to be doing that. I mean,
You
it's
don't do that.
common sense. It's basic common sense. But again, this comes down to the manager because what you instill in players is not just technical, but mentality as well about being smart. And you're right. He's quite close to the dugout, and Falk is up and down, up and down. He's very much a touchline manager as well, so he's up and down. But it's basic. I mean, these are rudimentary, basic elements that really you teach under 15s. That when you've got about 2 or 3 minutes left in the game and you're winning by the odd goal, you play it conservatively. And also, we talked about in the last podcast about time wasting. Absolutely nothing like that at all. This is really where it's been streetwise, but he throws it to Joseph, who's been awful this season, and it bounces off Joseph. I mean, this is again these are basic skills that you'd be annoyed on a Sunday afternoon playing in the parks. So it bounces off Joseph, and then there's a half-hearted attempt by Tanaka, and then Strike he's bypassed, and even at the end when Roden he should be smothering, but he sort of almost stands up, tries to create
Mm.
an angle, uh, and then the shot. I mean, I'm not really. I must confess, I'm not an expert on this XG and all this nonsense. But it apparently said that the XG, during when that guy struck it from there, the XG was, I believe, 0.03. So in a sense, what that means is that for every 100 attempts, that would go in
Times. Yeah.
three times. And Melia just lets it go. So it was a culmination, and the fact that it was in the 96th minute, it just was. It's almost as if the whole Leeds United world collapsed, and that was the defining moment of our season. I mean, there's been many times that we've shot ourselves in the foot, or at least certain individuals have shot the club in the foot. But that perhaps was because of the stage of the season. It was an absolute hammer blow. I mean, I was following it on Twitter, and oh my word, it's again. I was lying down, thankfully, because my legs went. It was the classic. My legs went. So I just fear the worst. I fear the worst. I mean, uh, the we don't have the mentality. If you looked at the reactions of the players, uh, I mean, they just absolutely just lost it. It was like players just could not believe. And I think there's going to be uh, some sort of I don't know whether there's going to be issues because, in a sense, winning does bring a great deal of camaraderie. But when you lose, sometimes cracks start opening and widening. And I think certainly with Melia, I mean, Melia should never wear that shirt again for Leeds United. I mean, I would be absolutely uh, incredulous if he was to start on Saturday, and we've got a 12:30 kickoff. Would you believe it? It's away to Luton, and Luton have just hit a little bit of form just at the right time. So uh, it's not looking good. I mean, I'm we're in the playoffs. We will be in the playoffs, and we'll lose the playoffs. At least Falk will be sacked. But what that then means for Leeds United Football Club, I don't know. I think we've got a long, long time to spend in the Championship because if we don't go up this year, which is obviously going to be the case, we're going to lose the odd good player that we have, but we're also going to lose, I think, some of the revenue that we get from so having been in the Premier League. So it's not good. It's not good. I've calmed down. This is me calm because over the weekend I was absolutely going nuts. Right, that is enough about Leeds United Football Club. Do you want to have a final word, a final say on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, we see football a little bit differently. Not necessarily saying my way is the better way. I do think my way is the calmer way. But no, look, I guess this is the life of a Leeds United Football Club fan. I mean, it's never easy. It's always kind of going into the final knockings, isn't it, Ayub, in terms of kind of April and May, big games, crucial games where wins and losses are defined, or critical. There's big impacts off kind of wins and losses and what have you. So, look, I just think they're still well placed. I'm not saying I always look on the bright side because you're right. Performances, watching the games, following the team, the club, the way the performances are slightly tapering off. You're going to read a lot into that to say it's coming. There's a big drop off coming, but they're still well placed. I think they can still recover. Obviously, conceding in the manner that they did at the time that they did is going to hurt. No two ways about it. But again, I don't expect the others to win out and gain maximum points. It just is what it is. There's tough games. It's a 46 game season. I expect a few more twists and turns. So if Leeds can just pick up some big wins, they can still gain one of the two or three spots. So the way I see it is just with the points the way they are. That's a 66% chance because there's not a huge deal between the three clubs. So no matter what you say, there's not a huge deal. The points tell you that. So let's see. Hopefully, for your sake, that they can string a few wins together because now a couple of wins in a row and the other team dropping points creates the necessary gap with games diminishing week by week. So let's see. I'm still hopeful. I'm still confident. But yeah, we shall see.
If you were a Leeds fan, you wouldn't be confident. But let's move on. Let's move on. Right, you've got an interesting subject or a topic that you want to talk about, and it's. I'm sure it's going to generate some sort of interest because you're talking about two players that have graced the Premier League. One guy is still gracing the Premier League. But go on. I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, we discussed yesterday that there's been a little bit of talk on social media. You spoke about how you're following some content providers, and there's been a lot of talk, Ayub, in recent times about the greatest Premier League winger to ever grace the Premier League, and there have been some talks, but most observers, and I just want to hear your thoughts just very quickly as well. Most observers boil it down to Cristiano Ronaldo and Mo Salah. Now, just before I stop, kind of closing all of that down, do you have anybody else considered in terms of those top two spots, or do you think it is a straight shootout between those two elite footballers?
I mean, I suppose it depends on how you define. I mean, what was Henry? Was he a striker? Was he a winger? Was he a
Uh,
combination of both?
You'd consider
Uh,
him a striker who drifted out to the wing, but he started up front in a 4-4-2 just ahead of Bergkamp for the most part, wouldn't you say?
yeah. So yeah, in terms of, I suppose, uh, for this conversation, yeah. I mean, I think Salah and Ronaldo are the finest wingers that we've had. We've had good players, but in terms of, I suppose, the numbers, I don't think there's anybody that sort of comes close to their numbers.
Yeah, and I would say like there are some honourable mentions. I guess Hazard would be another one that you'd perhaps throw into the mix. But you're right; it mostly boils down to these two. Premier League phenomenons, I guess. And there's been a lot of talk, and from what I've heard and the different opinions that I've gathered, Ayub, for the most part, it seems a fairly close call. Now, I'm going to quickly run through the numbers if that's okay, Ayub, for you, and then I'm going to give you my opinion because I do have a very clear-cut winner between the two. So you've got Mo Salah and Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm just going to quickly give you the goals and assists just for your information, Ayub. Mo Salah in the Premier League, because this is what the discussion's about, right? It's Premier League winger. Now, Ronaldo played predominantly in his United time, especially in the first stint, Ayub, as a right forward in a 4-4-2, let's say. And Mo Salah's mainly operated as a 4-3-3 right-sided winger, hasn't he? So Mo Salah, 184 goals in the Premier League, Ayub. That ranks fifth. I think he's joint with Sergio Aguero. So I think the next time he nets, he takes fourth place. He's also got 86 assists, and this ranks 10th. So right now, he ranks top 10 when it comes to goals and assists in Premier League history. Now, when you have Ronaldo, 103 goals for Manchester United across his two stints. We forget, obviously, that he had the one full season in, I think, 21-22. That ranks 33rd, and he's also got 37 assists, which rank 99th. Now, when you look at it like that, it's not a comparison, is it? Just simply based on goals and assists, you'd say Mo Salah's got him beaten and beaten comfortably. Ronaldo spent 7 full seasons at Manchester United, six in his first stint, one more in his second stint under Ten Hag, I believe. And obviously, this is Mo Salah's eighth full season at Liverpool Football Club in year 24-25. So that's what you have. Now, if you look at Mo Salah, Ayub, or Cristiano Ronaldo, I should say, in his first stint across for Manchester United, he got 84 goals across 196 games. So that's about 0.43 goals per game. And in his second stint, we forget, he got 19 goals, which is incredible, actually, given the advanced age. And that was about 0.48 goals per game for Ronaldo. Now, Mo Salah obviously had a small stint at Chelsea. Many people forget about it. And he was, I think, 2 goals from 13 games. So nothing to shout home about, obviously, very early in his tenure. But in his second stint, Mo Salah, in terms of goals to games ratio, he's at 0.65 goals per game, which comfortably outperforms Cristiano Ronaldo when it comes to goals. I mean, if we forget Ronaldo, of course, I think this is a critical point to point out, Ayub. He joined United at the tender age of 18. So he was far from the player that Mo Salah was when he started at Liverpool, I think just months after turning 25. So he was very much an established player hitting his athletic peak, whereas Ronaldo was still very much a young player. So those first 3 years when there wasn't much to write home about, let's say, so to speak, statistically, I guess you can forgive by and large. Now, Ronaldo, the main season that many people think about is that 2007-2008 season. They won the Premier League, they won the Champions League in Moscow against Chelsea. He won the Ballon d'Or that year as well, Ayub, which I think is important to consider. Now, I mentioned the Champions League, even though when we consider Premier League wingers of all time, I'm a bit wary about introducing competitions that are not Premier League related. But I think you've got to still put the season into context as well. But that was perhaps his best season. You have 31 goals, I believe 6 assists that season, culminating in team triumphs as well as individual triumphs. But if you look at the totality of his career at Manchester United, I'm just going to quickly tell you what his goals totals were for the seasons. 4, 5, 9, 17, 31, and 18. That was his first stint. And obviously, he scored 18 goals in his full season in under Ten Hag. Now, Mo Salah, by comparison, Ayub, never had a season or never has had a season for Liverpool Football Club where he scored less than 18 goals in a season. So those seasons, I mean, if you look at it, all but one season, Ronaldo hasn't scored more than 18 goals for Manchester United Football Club. Yet that's the flaw when it comes to Mo Salah in terms of his goals contribution. 8 seasons or 7.5 or 7.75 seasons for Liverpool, Ayub. And his goals per season, and I'm just going to read them out to you. 32 goals, 22 goals, 19 goals, 22 goals, 23 goals, 19 goals, 18 goals, 27 goals and counting. Now he's on course, I think, to hit, I've written down somewhere, I think 32 or 35 goals this season. Time will tell. I think he's on course for 35 goals in the season. He's on course for 22 assists as well. So, again, when it comes to simply goal scoring, Mo Salah's got a number of seasons perhaps that can go against Ronaldo's best season, which most people accept is that 2007 2008 season. Now, that is pretty remarkable. When you come on to kind of the individual awards side of things, I had a quick look. Ronaldo Player of the Season twice, Ayub, 6, 7, 7, 8. Golden Boot once. He was selected Team of the Year 5 times, 4 times in his first stint, actually, one time in his second stint, which I think is uh, to be noted, to be honest with you, given again his advanced age. Now, Mo Salah, he's been in Golden Boot. He's got 3 so far. This year will be his fourth. I think we can pretty much nail that on. His Players Player of the Year twice. He's obviously won one Premier League. I'll come on to maybe the team trophies shortly. But I think when it comes to the individual awards, by and large, I think Mo Salah's probably got him beat there as well. Of course, the big one is the Ballon d'Or, which you get obviously for domestic achievements as well as European achievements. And United obviously won the Champions League that season. Just before I give you just maybe a quick summary, you just before I finish, if you look at the team awards, or let's say team triumphs and trophies, Ronaldo during his time at Manchester United won 3 Premier Leagues, which was his last 3 years, Ayub, in his first stint. Won one Champions League, one FA Cup, 2 League Cups. In terms of Champions League, FA Cups, and League Cups, they tied exactly the same. But obviously, Salah's won now, if we count this season, Ayub, 2 Premier Leagues compared to Ronaldo's 3. And I think that is something that should be acknowledged, that Ronaldo's got him beat when it comes to the Premier Leagues. The only comment I would make to that Premier League, and you know where I'm going with this, Ayub, if you look at Mo Salah, his performances and his goals, we've seen how Liverpool have just fallen short in some seasons. And I think that is something that we should mention, right? I mean, they came second in his second season at Liverpool, where they came second with 97 points. And they've also come second with 92 points. Now, you're going to tell me you don't get Premier League titles for finishing second, and that's fine. But I think that is something to be mentioned, that we're not talking about some player who's just, he's only won 2. Yes, he's only won 2, if we again count this season. But there have been some seasons where they've had a remarkable 97 points. Here. Just have a think about that. 97 points. I think in Ronaldo's final season in his first in Ayub, they won the Premier League title with 90. So that's the highest points total Ronaldo has ever had at Manchester United Football Club, 90 points in 2008, 2009. Yet Mo Salah has finished second for his club twice with a higher points total. So there is some semblance. Now, look, going to the eye test, I think there are some people who perhaps consider Ronaldo, especially in terms of what he's gone on to achieve, in terms of what he did at Real Madrid. Most people accept his best years were at Real Madrid. I don't think anybody would dispute that. And if you're asking me in terms of footballer, I don't think it's particularly close. I think Ronaldo, over the course of his career, is regarded as a pantheon great, and Mo Salah isn't regarded as that. I have Cristiano Ronaldo as the second greatest player in the history of the game, and that's no slight. I mean, second greatest in the history of football is some going. Mo Salah isn't that. He's not even in that reckoning. But when it comes to Premier League winger of all time, I don't think it's particularly close. Mo Salah is the greatest Premier League winger of all time. I don't think it's particularly close with Ronaldo. I think some of it does get masked with what Ronaldo A has gone on to achieve, and B, obviously, some of the Premier League titles and what have you they've won. But if you look at all of Mo Salah's season, his floor season, his, let's say, below average season, is one that compares relatively favorably with any of Ronaldo's Premier League seasons with United. So I think a lot of it is the allure of what Ronaldo became. I think some of it is the aesthetic element in terms of what Ronaldo achieved. We think about some of the free kicks in the top corner. We think about him consistently putting his imprint on the big games. But Mo Salah has done that and beyond over a longer period of time. And that used to count for something in terms of longevity, in terms of consistency. We give Ronaldo that nod when it comes to the overall argument to say he's done it over a period of time, especially when you tack on his Real Madrid years and perhaps even some of his Juventus years. But there's no doubt in my mind that when it comes to Premier League, we're talking the Premier League, who's the greatest Premier League winger of all time, it's definitely Mo Salah. And I don't necessarily think that Ronaldo has an argument. And you might argue over that 3 year stretch, 3 Premier League titles, 1 Champions League, and the fact he scored 17, 31, and 18 goals, fine, so be it. No two ways about it. Incredible achievement from an incredible player. But in terms of Mo Salah, consistency big time contributions, week in, week out, availability as well over the period of time. I think he does go down as the greatest Premier League winger of all time. And like I said, I don't think when you deep drill down into the numbers that it's particularly close between the two players.
I mean, it's difficult to disagree with your assertion, but I do say that it's a difficult comparison to make, and you've made every single sort of point why it is difficult because of when Ronaldo came, he was a young kid, so maybe it took about 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
But obviously, when he was getting to his peak, he then obviously went over to Real Madrid. So in a sense, it's a difficult. It's almost like you're not really sort of comparing apples to apples because it's the time frame where you're analysing the each individual player. It isn't really sort of like for like. So based on the metrics that you're using, I think you're absolutely right. And it's a little bit unfair on Ronaldo because
Yeah.
in a sense he was there for a shorter period of time, or at least his peak was a shorter period. So therefore it's difficult to do a comparison. But so on that basis, it's difficult and almost impossible to counter what you've just said. What I would say though is he was absolutely, or Ronaldo was absolutely sensational because in the end, when he did leave Manchester United, he was, in my opinion, I mean, it's always been for me, it's always been a cigarette paper. There are people who say Messi was considerably better, but I would almost sort of say when he went to Real Madrid, he was just one of the best footballers, in my opinion. He was the best footballer because there was there was more to his game. I always thought. I mean, Messi was a genius, whereas with Ronaldo, there was, I think, extra elements to his game. I think his aerial prowess as well. I used to always put that in. He was lightning quick. Not to say Messi wasn't quick, but he was lightning quick as well. He could do things that perhaps sometimes Messi couldn't do. But there were obviously things Messi could do that Ronaldo couldn't do. But I just thought he was sensational. He was a player that absolutely the stuff. And it was a shame maybe that he didn't stay for a few more years because perhaps
Yeah.
if he had, then this would be a slightly different conversation. So I think you're right. It's comparing the best winger in the Premier League, then obviously you have to have the confines
Yeah.
of their performances in the Premier League. So can't disagree, my friend.
Yeah, and I think just a couple of points to that, Ayub. You're right. What you mentioned is absolutely right about it's not fair to to compare to some extent because there's so many differences between the two players, especially in terms of time spent, what time they arrived as per their careers. And that, I guess, explains in a sense why that's an explanation for things, isn't it? You can't then use that as a justification to say, well, let's grade Ronaldo on a curve. If he's only spent 7 years in the Premier League, his second stint, he was a forward, right? So let's just count the first 6 seasons. If you count those 6 seasons against Mo Salah's eight, I guess this will be his eighth full season. You can only just go off that. You can say, well, I get it. He arrived earlier, so that's an explanation for why perhaps the two are not comparable. So I'm okay with that. But that's the reason why I find it difficult when the argument is made that Ronaldo is the better winger because any one of his seasons, if you look at his best season, Mo Salah's got multiple seasons that can go up against that year. Now, I mentioned that 31-6 season, which led to big trophy wins. And look, Mo Salah's going to win the Premier League title this year, so let's not get it twisted. And if he stays at Liverpool next season, they'll have a good chance of winning next year as well. And for sure, at that point, we'll be able to have another conversation. But just to put it in context, you 31-6, so that's 37 goal contributions. If you look at Mo Salah's four best seasons, 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, 24-25. If you include all four of those seasons and average out what his goal contributions are, you get 36 goals contributions every single season. That's 42 goal contributions in the first season, 30 goal contributions in that second season, 29 goal contributions in his third best season. And this year he's on course, Ayub. If I just double check the number because I don't want to get it wrong because it's that ridiculous. He's on course for 57 goal contributions. Let me repeat that number. He's on course in the Premier League this season. If he continues as per his current rate, which is 27-17 right now, ridiculous. He's on course for 57 goal contributions. There's a clear claim to be made of you. This is the greatest Premier League season of all time. So even when you put up Ronaldo's best year, I could make the argument that Mo Salah's got multiple years, perhaps, that can go up against that best year. So it's not a criticism of Ronaldo. It's more the virtues of what Mo Salah's all about. And like I said, if he sticks around, and you might say, well, he's been here long enough. Yeah, but he's been here long enough with the highest numbers. We're not talking about some guy who took a couple of years off and produced numbers of like 6 goals and 3 assists or something like that. Every single season, he's pretty much good for 25 goal contributions, which is phenomenal. So for me, it's Mo Salah, best Premier League winger of all time. But that's just my opinion, I guess, on things.
No, but I think the point that you made at the end perhaps is much more of an interest because maybe that's what we should have discussed in their best seasons. Who was the best? Because we obviously we didn't get to see the best of Ronaldo at the start, but certainly towards the end we saw the best of Ronaldo. So maybe compare his best season to Salah's best season.
I would
And
I would argue it's still not close because as good as Ronaldo was
well,
that
that's
season,
yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I
yeah,
mean. So in a sense, maybe it's an argument that you can make, even though they played. Perhaps you can't compare like for the duration, but if you pick out their best seasons, Salah has been sensational, and maybe it is. It's always a strange one that when we talk about the greatest footballers ever, Salah sort of seldom gets a mention. And maybe he should. Maybe people should sort of realize that this guy he's a generational talent. He's sustained it for a long period of time, and he is putting out numbers in the toughest league in the world. This is the thing. This is the toughest league in the world. Now, if he was playing in Spain, if he was playing in lesser leagues, maybe these sort of numbers would be astronomical, comparable to Messi and Ronaldo. So maybe perhaps we need to give Salah the credit that he deserves. He obviously has got a great deal of credit. But how many Ballon d'Ors has Salah won?
exactly. Yeah, agreed. None. Yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about it, and that's why I agree. When it comes to getting credit on the European stage, you've got to do it consistently on the European stage. Ronaldo did that. Messi did that, which is why we consider them as pantheon greats. And that's the argument I'm making. Ronaldo, in terms of the totality of his career, it's not a conversation. If we confine it to the Premier League, and I've heard way too many opinions, Adam McCullough being one of them, where he talks about how Ronaldo, and many people still see Ronaldo as, in a sense, from a Premier League perspective, that he was ahead of Salah. Now, I agree, those last 3 years are comparable. They're good. They're quality. 3 Premier League titles in a row, one Champions League, and everything that's come with it. But Mo Salah's done it over a longer period of time and done it in a more consistent way, and is at this stage of his career having the greatest individual season of his career, and arguably the greatest individual season that anybody's had in the Premier League. I mean, we spoke that long record of Thierry Henry having 20 goals, 20 assists contribution. I mean, you'd think Mo's going to get another 3 assists to get to that 20 mark. But like I said, if he gets to, he's not going to get to 57 goal contributions, I can tell you that. But if he can get to 52, 53, I mean, this is just ridiculous. You're right. He hasn't done it in a sense consistently on the European stage, which is one of the big reasons I was pushing the whole narrative this year that Champions League was so critical in terms of the opportunity it presented itself individually for Mo Salah, for the manager, for the club, just how everything, plus the fact they're in a great deal of form. Yes, they've had a few shaky results recently and probably ran out of a little bit of steam. But that's one of the reasons why I thought the Champions League was so critical because there were so many
Mm.
storylines attached to it. But yeah, Premier League wingers of all time, for me, Mo Salah has to be in that team.
Yeah, and just a final point on that. I think Salah's work rate as well, because he does help out defensively, which Ronaldo seldom did. I mean that I mean you can argue that that wasn't his remit, but what Salah does is he puts in a shift, and you see him so often helping out the defense, or at least helping out in terms of making sure that they work and defend as a team. So that's another plus point that he's got. But you're right. I mean, it's a shame. I don't know whether he'll win the Ballon d'Or because time is running out for Salah, and it will be a shame. And maybe the and I know you sort of say that European tournaments obviously have to be perhaps won to justify the Ballon d'Or, but I don't know. I don't know. I think uh, there's enough evidence that he's shown to have won a Ballon d'Or at least once. The fact that he hasn't, I don't know whether politics are involved, or maybe whatever the criteria are, he's not satisfying the criteria. Maybe perhaps that European trophy or doing well in Europe is a key criteria, which is the reason why he perhaps hasn't got it. But one thing's for sure, these conversations should never be about, all right, he's better, he's not as good. These are great players, and we are fortunate to have such wonderful players that we've been able to watch and enjoy.
Absolutely, yeah. Two unbelievable, and like I said, it is those two. We agreed on that. It is these two players probably in that conversation, and it's to Ronaldo's credit that it's really just his final 3 seasons where he's able to at least put up an argument against Mo Salah. But just over the period of time, Ayub, over the course of the season, over the course of his career at Liverpool Football Club, he's always been in terms of putting up these incredible numbers. And again, I think if it wasn't for those, if those two near wins, let's say against Man City in terms of those 2 seasons when they finished second with 97 and 92, I do think to some extent if those two wins or those two near finishes had become Premier League title wins, and he was currently sitting on 3 Premier League title wins with a fourth one potentially to come this season, I think that would probably skew a lot of people towards more Salah, irrespective, just because he'd have the heaviness of the trophy cabinet as well. Again, during his time here in the Premier League. Right, let's switch topics, Ayub. I think we both pretty much agreed on that. Now we discussed that we'll do something a little bit different this time around. I wanted to throw a few. I mean, we're coming into April, business end of the season, so you kind of start to look a little bit ahead to the finish of the season so far. Obviously, big games coming thick and fast, none more so than for your club, as you've perfectly articulated earlier on. So I thought I'd throw a few things at you, a few statements. A few predictions your way, just nothing too stressful, so rest assured. And I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on a few true or false statements and get your kind of opinion. Just dig a little bit deeper in terms of what makes you think that way. So we'll start with the first one. I hope you're ready.
Yep,
Uh, Manchester City will not win another Premier League title with Pep Guardiola as head coach. True or false?
true.
Care to elaborate?
He's certainly not next season, and I'm not sure how long Pep's going to stick around. So uh, this team, there's a lot of rebuilding to be done, and I just don't think Pep for more than one more year. So if they win again, it won't be with Pep coaching Manchester City. So that's the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an interesting question. Something you wouldn't have thought about, I guess, before what we saw this year, and then suddenly some of the shortcomings are laid bare, aren't they? He's had to do some major surgery in the January transfer window with quite a number of signings, but still, there's a lot of incomings and outgoings to come. Of course, the Rodri return will does loom large, and yeah, and I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that Pep Guardiola's dominance in the Premier League is perhaps over in terms of winning the Premier League title. He's contracted Ayub for another 2 more seasons, I believe. But yeah, time will tell. But if I was, yeah, gun to my head, I might argue the same, which is that he's not going to win another Premier League title as Man City Football Club. Now, some of that may well be impacted depending on what happens with certain contractual situations at Liverpool Football Club. But perhaps that's one that we can revisit later on. Okay, I'll move on to another one, Ayub. Alexander Isak will be the winner of the Golden Boot in the 2025-2026 season. True or false?
False.
Care to elaborate?
Uh, I, I, he's a hit and miss striker. Now, I think what could help is his next move. If he moves, now I think if he goes to Liverpool, I mean, I think Arsenal sniffing as well. But I think if he goes to Liverpool, then yes, I think that's what he needs to do. I think he is now at that point where he needs to move on to the next stage of his career. And if he stays in the Premier League and if he goes to Liverpool, but he won't because I think the fee is ridiculously high. I think I don't know if anybody's prepared to pay 120 million plus for Isaac. But if he stays at Newcastle, no. If he goes to either Arsenal or Liverpool, then possibly yes.
Yeah, I'll hold my opinion on that because I've got one coming up where I'd perhaps like to offer a bit more and what have you. But you'd say he's definitely going to be in the running, isn't he? I mean,
Mm.
you've got Erling Haaland, who'll be in the Premier League next season. Went off with an injury yesterday in the FA Cup game against Bournemouth, but he should be fit and firing going into next season. And you'd think he'll still have his numbers, won't he?
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got, depending on obviously the Mo Salah situation and what have you, maybe Watkins. But yeah, Isak's an incredible striker. He'll be in the running. I think this you agree with. But I guess it depends whether or not somebody playing for, depends who you play for. Newcastle, that's going to be a little bit difficult. Okay, moving on to the third one, Ayub. Manchester United will not finish higher than ninth in the 2025-2026 season. True or false?
False. I think they will. I think they will. I mean, it's been a turbulent season. Uh, lots of sort of on-field and off-field issues. But I just sort of think that there is a certain calmness that is approaching. I think Amarin has had a great deal of difficulty. I think it's a lot more complicated and complex than he first anticipated. But I think there seems to be something just sort of developing. I think he'll have the whole of the summer. There's certainly going to be plenty of incomings. There's going to be a few players going, and I just see that he is a good coach. If he has a full summer to work on his methods to get the recruitment right, so there's players that he wants. I think they'll do all right. I think they'll do all right. I think I certainly anticipate them finishing top six.
Okay, when you say top six starts from first, second. So I mean, you're crazy at the best of times, but I imagine we can rule those out. So, what is if you're saying they're going to finish above ninth because that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
What's the height of their ambition?
Uh, I think it will be six because in a sense, I mean, it's
I love how you say top six. It's like I'm in the top 2 million richest people in the world. I mean, like, what position are you? 2 million. I mean, what is it? I mean,
Yeah, I think six. I think it'll be. I mean, it's one where I think. Do you know when because I always sort of say that there should be a KPI at the start of the season, right? What's your objective? And I think their objective will be right. Can we finish sixth? In a sense, it's not the greatest of accomplishment if you're Manchester United, but I think in terms of what's been happening, it's a good starting point because in a sense it gives them at least, I suppose, an incentive. But then what you do is you review it. You can sort of say, well, look, we've got a chance of top four. But I think they should be saying, right, we need to finish at least six. We need to see some progress at this football club. It's not a wild ambition to sort of say we're going to try and aim for six, but they have to have some sort of objectives. I think I'm never keen on sort of clubs just saying, well, we're going to do our best. No, no, try and set yourself a target at the start of the season. I'm sure clubs do. Perhaps they won't publicise it, but I would hope that that's the objective. And I've got a feeling they probably will finish six.
yeah, I'm gonna say true to the original statement. Manchester United will not finish higher than ninth next season. Look, more than anyone, I'm big on Ruben Amorim. I do like what he's about, but I also said that he shouldn't be judged this current season nor his next season. So I think things will still be very much challenging next year. You've heard about some of the off the field issues, Ayub, in terms of uh, the amounts of money potentially that he may have to spend. I look at that squad, I still think there's a lot of issues with it. They don't look on the cusp of major improvement. They've got one very good footballer, obviously captain Bruno Fernandes, but the rest is a lot of it's up in the air. So I think there's still a little bit of turmoil, a lot of working through in terms of getting to that point where they can start to look up. I don't think. I think they will finish ninth or below next season, simply because A, they've got their own troubles, but B, there's other football clubs that are much, much, much more ahead in terms of just their development, the coaches, just in a sense of what's perhaps to come in the summer. So yeah, we disagree on that one. This one's a little bit tricky. What will be the front six players for England in the opening game at the World Cup in USA World Cup 2026? So I'm not asking for the back four or the goalkeeper. I'm asking for the front six footballers who will start the first game in the opening game at the World Cup in America 2026. Go on.
Blimey, I mean, I've not been following international football for a long time, so
I'll give
I
you
don't.
mine. I'll give you mine
Yeah,
just
go
to
on,
give you a bit of
give
an
me yours.
idea.
Yeah.
I'll give you mine just for a bit of an idea. I was struggling with one of them, so I think it'll be Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Bukayo Saka, Harry Kane. I'm gonna go for Anthony Gordon. I'm a big fan, and I think he will win Thomas Tuchel over. Now there is a little bit of issues about who this last player is. There's been a bit of talk about Foden and perhaps Eze and who else could perhaps come into the reckoning? Maybe Rashford. It's coming into a little bit of form, but that's still some way away. I went for Rodgers at Aston Villa just because of. I'm just thinking about perhaps how he's going to want to shape the team. I like what I see from Rodgers. Works incredibly hard, still of a good age, and I think those will be the first six in terms of opening up the game, or the front six, I should say, in terms of that opening game at the World Cup. So just to give you Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Saka, and Kane. For me, those four, if they fit and relatively firing, I mean, they don't even have to be firing that much, but if they're relatively fit, those four start, and then that's a done deal. I'm going to go for Rodgers and Gordon, perhaps as the more questionable picks.
Right. Okay. I mean, I sort of include Palmer. Uh, I'm going to keep the same six, but what I'll do, I'll take two away from you. So I'll put Palmer instead of Gordon. Uh, Rodgers, he is. I mean, he's had a fantastic season. Uh, I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
Just trying to.
you've got potentially, obviously, you've got in terms of the candidates. So you've probably got Eze at Palace, perhaps do a move in terms of moving away. Obviously, done well to get Palace to the semi-finals of the FA Cup. Obviously, you've got Palmer playing, but you've got obviously Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, maybe Marcus Rashford. Those are some of the, I guess, big picks right now. See, even Morgan Gibbs White, slightly left field, made the last squad. That's why it's very difficult in terms of this last
Yeah. I
player.
mean, I'd probably go for Eze, and the reason why, I mean, now that you've sort of talked about Eze, the reason why is I've sort of, I won't say I've followed his career, but he used to play for QPR, and he was a player that I hugely admired. I mean, it's a player that I like the attitude as well. I think he's been somebody who's been very focused, very dedicated, and you've seen the progression. The curve is going up, and I like that. I like players who it's there's a great deal of effort. He's got a great deal of natural talent. When he was at QPR, he was sensational. He really was. He was a wonderful player. But I like his work ethic. I like the attitude. I like the fact that he wants to get better and better, and he's a damn good player. He's a dangerous player, and I think he's where I think he needs to now make that next move. It's like with Isaac. Uh, if you really want to maybe sort of perhaps establish a spell for Eze, I mean, obviously he's there that he's not being able to get to England. But I think what you want to try and do is now sort of say, right, I want to establish myself playing for England, and maybe I perhaps need to play for a bigger club. So
Yes.
I hope he does make a move, uh, and I'd probably include Eze because now that you've mentioned him, I remember him from QPR and the progression he's made, and he's a damn fine player.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right in terms of him being ready for that next move. He's probably, and Palace fans won't like us for saying this, but he's probably outgrown Palace and now needs to step up to see if he can show that consistency at the top knockings of the Premier League and perhaps in Champions League as well. So let's see. Quick one, and you've alluded to it earlier. Sorry to take you back to this point. Sheffield United, Burnley, and Leeds United will all get promoted to the Premier League this season. True or false?
False. There's only two teams from that three that will get promoted, and this is not me just being pessimistic. Genuinely, I sort of think Sheffield United and Burnley, it's a done deal because they've hit form, they've got characters, they've got managers who've been around the block, and they know what it takes. Unlike Falk, I think Leeds just don't have the
He doesn't
mentality.
know
We
what
don't
it
have the
takes.
coach. We don't have the mentality. I've started again, haven't I?
It doesn't take
I've
much.
started again. No, but we just don't have what there is a criteria that you need to get promoted, and ultimately you always have to have some sort of leaders, some sort of warriors within your squad. We don't have any at all. If you look in the eyes of the Leeds United players, they're cowards.
No.
They're yellow-bellied cowards.
Oh,
They are. I mean, it's
easy
this
now.
is it's when things are going well, great. It's when it's when you really need to roll your sleeves up. That's when they found wanting. And over the last few weeks, it's just been absolutely dire. So Sheffield United will get promoted, Burnley will get promoted, Leeds won't even get to the final. We're going to lose in the first round. Doesn't matter who we play. Whoever we play will be too good for Leeds United Football Club.
Look, I do agree that there is some challenges mentally for whichever team of those three finishes in the playoffs, simply because they've been a cut above the other three, right? In terms of whoever will make the playoffs. I think that much you've got to agree with as well, just because of the points total. So I agree, but I'm going to say true. I'm going to say whatever it takes. And I'm not sure who's going to finish third right now. I'm not too close to the situation, but I just think they are the three best teams in the league. And over two games in the first playoffs and in a final, you'd hope without anything unusual happening. And we know what Leeds is. I don't even want to take you there because your heart's going to start fluttering. But I can imagine what a Leeds playoff final would look like for yourself. You've been there, done it. Unfortunately, you got the horrible T-shirts as well. So yeah, it's been a tough one. But that's a very interesting one. We'll move on just very quickly. Now, in the next three full Premier League seasons, so that's 25-26, 26-27, and 27-28. Arsenal Football Club will win a Premier League title. True or false?
No, false.
Wow. Okay. So who's sharing the next three? Just as an early prediction, Ayub.
Uh, I don't, I don't know. Maybe I
Because
said no because
okay,
I
because
don't want them to win.
yeah, I was
I
gonna say
mean,
you said Guardiola's not winning one, so I'm really interested to see
yeah.
who's like Leeds are gonna win one, are they? Go on, tell me.
I don't know. I mean, it's a strange one because I think I don't know whether and this is really strange thing to say because I know obviously we always like sort of differ on this and we butt heads on this, but I just don't think Arteta. There is something just that there is to be a winner. There is something that you need. I think sometimes his emotions get the better of him. Uh, there are other coaches who are emotional, but sometimes it's almost as if it's an act. It's like with Guardiola. Obviously, Klopp. There's certain characteristics that these coaches have. I just think with Arteta, sometimes it's just there's a naivety, and I just think that's where perhaps they'll fall short because he's had opportunities, and it's not for the fact that Arsenal haven't got good players, because I think that any maybe another coach and you probably would have won. That's the only reason I when it comes to the crunch, Arteta just doesn't have. He'll probably get too caught up in the emotion, uh, and he'll do something or make a decision perhaps that will adversely affect the game, the result. So that's the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a difficult one for me to answer because it's more hope than anything else. But in the next three full Premier League seasons, I think just because of the landscape, a lot will determine whether or not who they can actually keep, not necessarily about who they can add on in terms of their squad. You're right, they're not a million miles away. I disagree with you on the Arteta point, but he has to come through and then I guess prove you wrong. So let's see. But interesting that you think in the next three full seasons they won't win it. You don't have Guardiola winning another one. So yeah, I mean, looking forward to Anthony Iraola 2 years time lifting a Premier League title. I'm sure you'd be pleased with that, right? This one's a bit quick fire, you, so keep it quick. Right. Where will the following players be plying their trade next season? Now, you can mention a league, or you can mention a club, if that's okay, where appropriate. Okay, so we'll keep these quick fire. You mentioned it earlier. Alexander Isak next season.
Spain,
Oh,
because nobody's going to afford him here.
interesting, very interesting. I'm going to say, I think it is such a tough one. You think he's going to end up at Spain? So you imagine he's going to end up at Real or Barca, right?
Yeah,
Potentially, unless I guess Atletico lose um, Alvarez. There's some talk about Liverpool, and maybe that could start a merry-go-round or something like that. Alexander Isak, I think he'll be in the Premiership next season. It's a lot of money. I think he's at Liverpool next season. Okay. Kevin De Bruyne.
Saudi or America. Right.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I think Saudi will be. I'm with you. It's Saudi or the US. Saudi, I think, will be in terms of the money. I think the deal's done, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Um, but the States could make some interesting element due to the fact they've got the World Cup. Now, I just think that sometimes, I mean, America, he'll end up at one of the glamour franchises. Good place to live, I guess, for the families. Obviously, got
Hmm.
kids. World Cup's coming to town, so there'll be a lot of kind of opportunities off the back of that as well. So I'm with you. It's the States or Saudi. I'll go Saudi. I think the numbers will be astronomical, so I'll go with Saudi Arabia for
Hmm.
Kevin De Bruyne. Virgil van Dijk,
Liverpool.
same. I have it as Liverpool as well. I think they'll get the deal done over the line. I think it's just a case of focusing on the crucial games coming up. Mo Salah, just whilst we're on the topic,
Same. He'll stay.
I have it the same as well. Both those key players will end up at Liverpool Football Club. Bruno Guimaraes,
That's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. Again, it's the valuations will probably just put some teams off. But I don't know. Maybe I see him where somebody will take a punt, and even though maybe perhaps he's more expensive than he should be, uh, Spurs.
I don't think he can move from Newcastle to Spurs. I don't think he can. I don't think that move makes sense because think about it, Ayub, but he's not going to get more money at Spurs, and it's not a better footballing move right now either. So, and I think he's good enough to play for one of the big boys. And look, Spurs are they've had a struggling season this year. I'm going to suggest that he'll move on. I think he will move on. I think somebody will be in for him in terms of as a quality combative central midfielder. But I'm still not sure to who. So let's just park that one. But I think he moves on. I do think he moves on. I think he'll be subject to some big bids, albeit for some big football clubs. And like I said, when you're a dominant central midfielder, and he's a quality central midfielder,
Yeah,
he's gonna. And the way his style of play suits multiple leagues, wouldn't you say? Premier League, maybe
yeah.
even the Italian league, Spanish league. So time will tell. This one's an interesting one. Harry Kane.
Bayern Munich. That's Bayern.
I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest he comes back to the Premier League. 2 seasons at Bayern Munich, he wins what he needs to win this year. May well even win the Champions League. I think he comes back to the Premier League, uh, and for the time being, I think he ends up at Spurs, unless I hear something else. But
Wow,
I,
wow.
I just have this feeling he does have a release clause in his contract, one that allows Spurs to buy him for a certain amount. I don't think he's going to be able to move to another club. I mean, Chelsea need a striker, Arsenal need a striker. The Arsenal thing would be some story. Liverpool need a striker, but I'm gonna imagine Spurs will do it. Daniel Levy will do it just for the sake of some good news, to be honest with you. So let's see. Marcus
Wow.
Rashford.
Uh, Villa.
Uh, you think Villa will make that into a permanent signing?
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. Especially, I mean, it's yesterday. You saw it. You saw he's playing with a smile on his face. He seems to sort of adapted to the way that Aston Villa play, and maybe he's found his happy space.
Yeah, I think he moves on from Manchester United, but I think it won't be at Aston Villa.
Mm,
I have a feeling that he could end up maybe perhaps I think it's a wonderful shop window type opportunity for him. I think to make it into a permanent deal, however, I think that might be a challenge, I think. So I think he moves on from Man United, yes. However, I have a feeling that he may well end up abroad. So I'm going to say Spain for next season for Marcus Rashford. And finally, in terms of just the player predictions, Ayub, Jack Grealish.
that's an interesting one. It's a player I admire. I really do think he's such a good player. He was never worth 100 million, but I do. I like the player. I like the man as well. I mean, he divides opinion, but genuinely, if the amount of times that you've seen some really good stories with Jack Grealish, I mean, it was the last thing that I read. He'd bought. He was in a pub and he bought everybody a drink. He's really, really good with sort of kids as well. He engages. I just hope I don't know. I think he needs to move. He needs to move from Manchester City because he's going absolutely nowhere. But it's where he goes. Again, he's one that perhaps Spurs might look at, uh, because I think Spurs will have to do something. I think there's a lot of. I've got some mates of mine who are Spurs fans, and they're not happy. And I think Daniel Levy needs to do something, inject some fresh blood. I think Grealish would do really, really well. So I'm going to go for Spurs. Everybody's going to Spurs.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Squad of 70.
squad of 70, and the most frugal chairman of all time. So I'm not sure how that works out, but I can, yeah, I mean, I can imagine Jack Grealish likes a party, buying everyone a drink, and Ayub likes them all good. Anyway, two more quick ones, Ayub, just very quickly, just to finish off. Next season will be the last season these following managers are managers of their respective clubs: Enzo Maresca at Chelsea, Pep Guardiola at Man City, and Ruben Amorim at Manchester United. Before you answer, that's all three. So it's not one or the other. I'm saying all three. Enzo Maresca at Chelsea, Pep Guardiola at Man City, and Ruben Amorim at Manchester United will not be in charge of these three clubs heading into the 2026-2027 season. So that's 2 seasons removed from now. So last season is the last year these guys will be at their football clubs. True or false?
False. Two will not be at the football club. Amorim will.
Wow. City and Chelsea at least still in the upper knockings of the Premier League, and you think Amorim's going to be the one to outlast them. Fair enough. I mean, it's a fair shout. He's probably got a longer runway, hasn't he? I mean, Pep, yes, but Pep perhaps might just overthink it and think this is perhaps the end of the road, right, for him. Last one, just to finish off, and I'll then let you say goodbye. Real Madrid will win the Champions League this season. True or false?
True. True. They've just got it. They were born to win the Champions League or the European Cup. So Liverpool, I would have hoped sort of stayed in the competition because I think an informed Liverpool perhaps would have been a challenge. But Liverpool being knocked out, I can't see anybody beating this Real Madrid side. A good side with a sprinkling of absolute superstars. So Real Madrid will win the Champions League.
Wow, so you're not giving us any hope. Okay, cool. In the
Oh yeah,
quarterfinals.
Arsenal.
No.
Completely forgot. No. Real Madrid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some news just before I let you finish. Some news earlier today. Obviously, that Saka's back. Will be part of the squad for tomorrow night's game against Fulham. They'll be trying to give him some minutes heading into that game at the Emirates. Basically, in 7 or 8 days' time. Time will tell if he can start that game and if he's kind of sharp enough to make a real difference. But yeah, that was, I thought, fascinating set of questions. Very interested with your responses. Probably the one that took me aback was the Arsenal one in terms of not winning a title in the next 3 seasons. So yeah, hope Sheffield United and Burnley win from here on in.
Bookmark my answers. Let's see what happens, how it transpires. As always, an absolute pleasure, OS. Thank you so much. And it was really interesting. Those questions were we don't. I mean, to the viewers, we never sort of discuss these things, so it always is a bit of a surprise, and it's the first time of hearing, so it's always nice for me as well. So, hope you enjoyed the show. Drop your thoughts and stay safe. Enjoy yourselves. Really soon. Take care. Turn off for now.